Thank you for joining us. My name is Kareem Kanji. We have a very special guest. Well, all our guests are special, but I want you to welcome Hessie Jones. How are you, Hessie?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And so today we're not really going to talk about one thing at all. We're talking about a number of different things that have been happening recently as it pertains to social media. Now, different brands are using it and some of the things that have been happening. But quickly we'll talk about this and we'll come back to it at the end. You've recently started a new company.
Right.
What is it called? What are you guys doing?
It's called ArCompany, and we're launching a social business consultancy. There's 4 of us, and we figured it's needed in the market. Social media is here, it's to stay, and now we're trying to get companies to get to the next level.
Excellent. You've got some heavy hitters.
Yeah, we do.
On your team.
Yeah. We have Danny Brown, who is one of the top marketing bloggers, as announced by HubSpot. Great guy, humble as pie. Andrew Jenkins, who is a friend that I've known for years, and also Amy Tobin out of Florida, whom I've gotten to know in the last year or so. She's just an amazing social strategist. So.
Nice.
And all of us live social, so it made sense to do something like this.
Awesome.
Right?
And we'll come back to it, talk about some of the things that you guys want to do.
Sure.
With that. But I thought the first thing that we talk about is, I guess, crisis communications. Recently, things have happened on the channels of brands, on social media channels that brands own, that they wish hadn't have happened. We have the Citi of Vaughan issue. We have what happened when a bunch of people got fired from HMV.
Right.
And so let's talk a little bit about that. So the Citi of Vaughan.
Citi of Vaughan.
Snowstorm happened last week in the GTA area, and someone who has access to the Citi of Vaughan's Twitter account inadvertently tweeted from that account rather than probably their personal account.
Right.
That they used some expletives to question why are people parking on the streets.
Exactly.
During a snowstorm rather than in their driveway and in their garage. Your thoughts on that?
So 2 things about that.
Yeah.
First of all, it probably wouldn't have gone viral as it hadn't it been for the fact that the expletive was in that tweet.
Yes.
Right? That's one thing. The other thing is how the city reacted to it. We know mistakes happen. They happen all the time, and this would have been a great time to figure out, what's the company going to do about it, right? But I think when things that are bad happen, people automatically panic, and they try to push the stuff under the rug and try to just imagine that it never happened. So they shut down their Twitter account. It actually didn't exist for about 3 hours.
People didn't know whether they had closed it or what.
Right. And that's the worst thing you can do, right? So, and then when they came back, they automatically said, well, it was somebody who wasn't authorized to use it. But they automatically tried to shift blame as opposed to owning the mistake. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing about companies these days, is that PR has always been kind of their fallout guy, the guy who says, okay, I'm going to pick these guys up and kind of spin it to make it look like it was not our error, it was somebody else. The fact is that companies make mistakes because companies are made up of people. And and I feel bad for the person who did that, because you know it was coming. And it's a sad state when people who are community managers see that kind of example happening, and it's like, well, what's that going to do to the job market for community management? They're always going to be the fall guy.
Yeah. And it was interesting because I thought, especially from the Citi of Vaughan, and I don't know whether they still have that radio commercial playing, but they used to make fun of Toronto, right? They used to say the city above Toronto, saying, we're better than. Right. And it was done with tongue in cheek. But it was fun and it was interesting. So I was waiting for the follow-up tweet to not necessarily make fun of the mistake that they made, but to apologize and to make fun of themselves. To speak in that same voice that their radio commercial played in. You know, but it was literally like, oh my goodness, what have we done? Close the account, let's meet. You know, what can we do to spin this thing so that we don't look bad?
Yeah, and I wrote a post about it just that went out today, and one of the best examples of a company kind of embracing and owning the mistake was Red Cross. Do you remember last year when Gloria Hang actually tweeted by mistake out of the Red Cross account that I think it was called Dogfish Brewery or something. It was a type of beer, and she said, you know, we're going to drink it right, and you know, we're going to get slithered.
Yeah.
She was so embarrassed about it, but it didn't take long for the Red Cross to come back into the account and was saying something to the extent that, no, you know what, just so you know, the Red Cross is sober. We've taken out the offending tweet and with the car keys, right? It was really
there you go.
Fun, tongue-in-cheek. And you know what that did? That actually sent a message out to everybody about their brand, that we care for the employees, and that it's a mistake, and it's not like she may do it again. It's a mistake. We're going to embrace it. We're going to move on. The difference between that and HMV, City of Vaughan, is that they automatically lay blame to one person, and then suddenly the next tweet was about promoting something about the City of Vaughan, almost like it never happened.
Yeah.
Right? And they didn't engage in conversation from other people who were trying to get clarity on the situation.
No, not at all.
Right?
Not at all.
So.
And so I want to talk about a bigger issue there, but let's talk about what happened at HMV. A bunch of employees in England get called into the office, and we're firing the whole department. And lo and behold, one of the community managers hops on their phone and starts tweeting, saying, hey, we're just being fired here, just to let you know. Oh, and now our marketing manager wants to know how we can get control of Twitter.
Right.
And that's interesting. What's interesting to me is who are these people that they're employing? And I think that's very interesting because it seems to me that these are junior level people.
Right.
That they're giving literally the keys to their communication department.
Right. Yeah. And
right?
You know what the sad thing is about social media? Because companies don't really get it, they don't understand the impact of a bad tweet when it goes out, or how to manage something when something goes wrong. They give it to the lowest common denominator, which is an intern, because they don't understand what the impact is, right? And it's not about age, because the girl happened to be 21 years old, the one that was tweeting.
Sure.
And yes, she was doing it out of fear, and yes, she probably was ill-equipped to actually deal with that stuff. But the onus is on the company. If the company were well informed, then they would hire properly for the role, as opposed to give it to, if they understood the broader impact, it would be somebody who understood crisis comms, who understood PR, who understood how to deal with media and Twitter, etc. They didn't do that.
Yeah. And
unfortunately, it ended up happening that they did that at a time when those people that were going to be fired still had the keys.
How does somebody, working at a, I don't know how big HMV is, but a multi-million-dollar company, have access to the account from their phone or from their mobile device or their tablet?
It's not. I think that goes to the nascency of the channel and the fact that there's still not enough governance and not enough policy or right policy that's put in place to allow and to determine access to accounts, especially when stuff like this happens, right? There's the other problem is that when this person leaves, is it a centralized password? That person could potentially change the password as well. Is it also manned by other people within the company? That's the hardest. That's the weird thing, and you can't. You really don't know how to set a rule against that if you've never done it before. Right?
Yeah.
All of us that have been in social media, we're leading with our gut. We're thinking this we think is the right thing to do, but we've never done it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to something like this, how do you manage it so that there are guidelines when you have to transfer control of one account to another. And I've seen it done with Facebook accounts where nobody knew who was the originator of that account. And then next thing you know, there's no way to transfer the information, and nobody can tweet Facebook as the administrator, because the administrator somehow doesn't exist.
I mean, one of our earlier clients that we worked for, whose name will remain nameless at the time. I remember them giving us a Twitter account, but telling us, you know what, we don't know the password yet, because the person who changed it doesn't work here anymore, and they're on a cruise ship. And I was like, really?
That was just crazy.
And it was not until 2 months later they said, oh, we have the password. And we said, well, we've already rebuilt your channel, and we've got, hundreds, if not thousands of people now, following us and chatting with us. We can't go back to that old one. It's that time has come and gone.
Yeah,
It's strange,
Well, I mean, an account is an account. An account is an account, regardless of whether or not it's a social channel or it's an internal tool or framework or whatever, where you have multiple access points. The rules should not be any different, right?
Just because it's a free tool.
Yeah. Well,
you don't treat it that way.
I don't think people or companies really understand the gravity of owning communications from a social media channel.
Mm-hmm.
They don't treat it like the same channel that they pay money for.
True.
Right? And that's unfortunate, because it's the very same channel that's going to bite them in the butt.
That's right.
So
let's get off of that and talk about how my Facebook blew up today as a result of me posting a photo of my LinkedIn.
Yes. Email
I got from LinkedIn. I am now the top 1%, or part of the top 1% of people on LinkedIn. I don't even know what that means. In fact, I'll read and a number of people have been receiving this same email, whether it's top 1%. So, Kareem, congratulations, you have one of the top 1% most viewed LinkedIn profiles for 2012. I don't know exactly what that means, how they've measured the most views or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But I mean, I've got 25 comments on this, and more than a dozen people liked it, and people have written blog posts now about this. And then there's cred, people being the top 1% of. What does all this mean, Hessie?
Yeah, I'm wondering if everybody's following clout and their model of egotism, and thinking that we're going to build loyalty by showing these people how good they really are. And with clout, it's almost like the reason people stayed with clout, regardless of how much they hate it. I think for me, it was more experimentation.
You just wanted that car.
I didn't want the car. I did want the car.
Yes.
But I wasn't I was trying to prove that I was not the right target for that car. My husband was, but he's not in any social network, so
sure.
we got it vicariously because of me. But
so you did get the car?
We did get the car.
And so did you tweet about how you're not the right person for the car?
No.
Because you just want the
car.
I did.
But the funny thing is that, a side note, a bunch of us tweeted about it.
Yes.
But to me, it's not the right approach for defining or rewarding influencers. Yes, there is, people will go back and take a look at how they did on social networks, on their clout score, because of how they're doing on engaging, but it ends up being a contest. It's really sad in a way, because that's how clout was able to bring people back. It ended up being a popularity contest, right? And now, Cred has done that, LinkedIn has done that. To what degree, right? What is that going to do to you and to me as individuals? Now you should actually be getting like some of the, your inbox should be flooded by job offers because you're one of the top 1% viewed, correct?
I hope so.
So that's what I mean. What's the correlation between the top 1% viewed and your prospects for, say, job opportunities or partnership opportunities or whatever, right? Revenue opportunities.
So let me play devil's advocate. So you've got on the one side, you've got messaging that appeals to people's sense of wanting to belong and of wanting to be popular and of wanting to matter. right?
Mm-hmm.
So saying, wow. I mean, so I've seen other people post at 1%, saying, wow, I feel good about myself. I posted it and called them out on it. Said, thanks, LinkedIn, but exclude.
Exactly.
Saying really. And so I wasn't tooting my own horn. I was saying, I've seen everyone get this email.
Exactly.
But number two, what's the difference between that and appealing to people's sense of doing the right thing? So I'll use what I believe Bell is doing it today on talking about mental health.
Okay.
Right. So Bell is sponsoring. I don't exactly. Let me see if I can find it here on Facebook. But they're sponsoring.
Yes, I've seen that.
So share this. The Let's Talk. So for today is Bell's Let's Talk Day. For every share this post receives, we'll donate 5 cents to mental health initiatives. So that's cool. So now here we have Sheldon Levine sharing this. I take a look at this and I go, wow, Sheldon Levine cares about people with mental health and he wants to do something. What's the difference between a brand doing this and a brand like Clout or a brand like, I don't know, GM or Ford teaming up with Clout and saying we want to give people a free test drive?
One thing that's really strong, or has been strong in the last couple of years, has been this idea of altruism and doing a lot more social good.
Yeah.
Which is great from Bell's standpoint, because first of all, the issue of mental health rises to the top because of what happened in the shootings
down in the States.
down the States, and also because the issue is broadly recognized, right? People like Sheldon Levine and in our network, we recognize, it sparks an interest in our minds because we all like to see that kind of social good happen. It's not because of Bell, it's because of Sheldon Levine, who's in our network, who happens to say something really good about that we end up hopping on the bandwagon. And that's a really key point, is that because he endorses it, we believe it. It's different from a Clout standpoint, because Clout and its sponsors like GM, who wanted to go out to people to tweet about their Cadillac because they had high scores, was nothing more than just promotion, right? And they would expect that people would tweet about them or write about them just because of their score.
But couldn't, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, to see both sides of the story, couldn't Bell, gone to various mental health institutions and just said, here's a check?
They could have.
So what value does, by anyone just sharing that, for me sharing it, I haven't paid anything, but Bell is paying.
Right.
Right? So what's the difference, so why is, Bell is hijacking,
You
right?
think?
Our
It
options,
depends.
aren't they?
It depends. If they posted this, if the originating post was on their Facebook page, it's shareable, right?
Yeah.
They're not, when you think hijacking, they could DM a bunch of people, and which I've seen done from an influencer or strategy standpoint, and say, please share this, and we will do this for you. That's not the right approach, unless you have a personal relationship with them. For me, and I don't know where the original post came from, but if Sheldon Levine was already...
Well, it's coming from Bell Canada. It's a Bell Canada photo.
Yeah, but they shared Bell Canada. So you're right. So what happens is that their original, what's it called? Likers of the page. So they see it posted, they like what they see, they want to share it to their network. And that's organic, and that's real, right? I wouldn't say that that's hijacking, because what you're doing is you're putting a value out there, and you're hoping that people that actually see that will share it. But you're not you're not necessarily rewarding them for doing it.
No, you're not. But at the same time, Clout necessarily isn't rewarding anyone unless people opt into the reward.
Yes.
Correct?
Right.
Right. So, I mean, I'm not complaining or anything, but I haven't gotten the free car. I never got the free airline trip. And for a time, I opted out of Clout, and then I opted back into Clout for various other reasons.
Yeah.
And I continue to be on cloud, whether I talk good or bad. And, I don't know, but I believe that what they're trying to do has some positive aspects to it. Whether it is people with a high cloud score, we're going to give them a message to share something about a charity, or whether people with a certain cloud score get a free bag of chips or a car or a free flight, right?
But is that right? See,
I don't know whether the question is right or wrong. I think when people see it, they see it within a silo, and they say, if this is what a brand is doing, maybe this is all the brand is doing,
right?
Rather than taking a step back and see what else is the brand doing. And so my thought is really what GM and Bell are doing is really the same thing. What they're doing is that they're appealing to people's sense of selfishness, right? Because I could either share, or I could share and take out a checkbook and write a check.
You could.
Right? I could. Bell is making it easy for me to participate by really doing nothing. Right?
The difference is that you weren't deemed special by Bell, right?
No, I wasn't deemed special by Bell, and I don't know whether special is the right term or not.
Right.
But here's what I do think. I think that when clout or cred, or any sort of brand that rewards people, they're doing it because they understand the same thing that Bell understands. That people are going to share this.
It depends on the value.
Right? So, you might not have shared the car that you got because of certain things, but many people, which was what GM hoped for, many people shared, whether it was on Facebook or whether it was on Twitter, or whether it was on YouTube or Instagram or their blog, about their experience with it. And so what GM was doing was not necessarily, we want to reward people with a cloud score, but we want mentions of this brand to go through the roof. And here is one way that we're going to help achieve that.
Okay, let me tell you why that's a problem.
Okay.
Because brands right now don't know how to engage. So they don't know how to build relationships to the point where they can actually knock on your door, know you by name, and say, hey, Kareem, and you could have had a discussion with somebody in GM where you've built a relationship with them, and then they can go to you and say, can you be one of our influencers? They don't have the time, nor the money, nor the ROI to actually make that effort, because it's such a long-term gain. So instead, they will pay, I don't know, $20,000 or whatever to clout to buy the influence, which is the wrong thing to do. I understand, and the other thing is that they're targeting poorly. They're targeting people who have high scores, as opposed to people who tweet, and they have enough of the database to know that Hessie doesn't care about cars. Hessie cares about her cello. She cares about social media. She cares about her kids. But I'm targeted for a very entity that I have no interest in.
Your kids play sports?
They do.
Yeah, where do they play?
They play hockey and...
Need a car to get around?
They do, but they don't need a Cadillac.
Need to travel around with your cello?
I would rather get a big vehicle to put my cello in, as opposed to a little sports car that, to me, is like an old man's car. So, a Cadillac. So
your husband's going to watch this.
I know. I can say a lot about him because he loves the vehicle.
There you go.
But
it wasn't for you, no.
It wasn't.
You know what? I think it's more than just a black and white. I think we're, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and I agree with a lot of what Danny Brown blogged about today. But I think it's not just a black and white issue, right? I think that brands, that just because a brand uses an initiative like this doesn't mean that they don't know how to engage. I think it is a tactic, whether it's a good or bad tactic. I think is a short-sighted discussion rather than taking a look at their whole strategy and everything that they're doing. But it is an interesting discussion to have.
It is.
About this.
You know what? I do praise companies like GM who are testing the channels and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, because we're we're taking it from a very purist standpoint.
Yeah.
And I'm a marketer and I'm an advertiser. I know how to spin, I know how to sell, but I also understand the social media channel. And we know, coming from the side of, let's say, influencers and bloggers, etc., that communities aren't built overnight, right? And I think that's the one message I want brands to understand, is that, you know, why don't you take the time to build it? And the effort is really somebody's salary for a year, and then all you need to do is pick up the phone.
Do you feel the same way about advertising on social? So whether it's Facebook ads or sponsored tweets or things of this, do you look at that the same way then? I
had a lot of hope for sponsored stories because it was touting value and stories as opposed to promote my product, promote my service. The problem is that where it's positioned is in an ad form, so that I kind of like the way it is, because when your friends like a page, whatever, it's easier for you to kind of gravitate towards liking that page as well, because there is an affiliation with people who are already there. Sadly, I don't click on them and I don't buy them because it still looks like and feels like an ad for me. But I understand the value of it, because to build community, you need to gain momentum in the beginning. So after you've spammed your friends and your family to like your page, what's next? Well, you either build value in the form of content, or you start buying the sponsored stories and the newsfeed ads. The problem with that is that if you spend all that time to build a community, and you have to spend even more dollars to get in front of their face on their newsfeed or a sponsored story, what's the point? So you have 10,000 likes on your page, and half those people are not engaged because you haven't contacted them, haven't communicated with them in a period of 4 weeks. So by Facebook rules, they won't ever see your post unless you force the post,
which is through the ads.
Right, and
right?
that's
it's almost a catch-22, saying we don't want to buy Facebook ads, we want our content to rule and people to be really engaged with us.
Right.
But in order for people to actually see our Facebook posts, we actually have to buy ads.
Exactly.
So that more of our community can see. So almost a catch-22.
Right.
You know, we could talk here for hours and ordering food and everything like that, and continue talking.
I can do that.
But the battery won't last. So so let's end off with this. Tell us a little bit more about your company and really why you started it, and really the difference that you guys are looking to make with companies that you engage with.
Well, it's funny because I've been frustrated for a number of years. I've been in digital for about 10 years and started in social media back in 2006 when I launched Dancers in Canada, which is really cool. But after that, everything started going downhill. The recession happened in the States, and I thought that was a prime time for social to start kicking off. The reality is that even with depressed budgets, companies were trying to hang on to traditional media and channels that they already knew of in order to build visibility for themselves. So even when social became prevalent, people weren't doing it right. People were still thinking, and I laid the blame on a lot of agencies because I used to work at agencies, and we didn't understand the metrics that actually people could gravitate towards in terms of what is success. So success used to be followers, fans, right? And how much I grew my page, that kind of thing. And that's not really true, because the numbers don't mean much if they're not physically engaged in the conversation. So now all the metrics are starting to change, but there's still a lot of companies that need the education, right? And because marketing budgets are very much tied to a fiscal responsibility, you are, as a marketer, are only given a limited time in order to perform. And that's where social media ends up falling down, because social becomes more of a campaign blip as opposed to a sustainable strategy. And so what I realized was that even from working at startup companies, we needed to get to a level where, you know, people may need the education to figure out what social is, but we needed to grab onto the people that really got that and wanted to move to the next level. And that's understanding how to be social within your company. Because the reality is that if there's all this information about your customers out there, but you don't have the mechanisms internally to actually capture that insight and to be able to deliver it to the right people internally, then you're going to lose. And it's not, and it's imminent. It's imminent that this data shift is coming down. Companies who aren't even listening are going to be way behind the curve. And those who are listening need to aggregate internal transactional information with the stuff that's out there already, so that you can have a more holistic picture of who your customer is. And the name of the game in the next couple of years is about retention, because losing a customer far outweighs the cost of actually gaining a customer. So we need to focus on companies to be able to do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
For coming in and for chatting.
Okay.
Really appreciate it. Where can people find you online?
Hessie Jones on Twitter.
Awesome.
And Hessie.Jones on Facebook.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. Again, my name is Kareem Kanji. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find me on Twitter @Kareem Kanji. Go check out our website, thirdocean.com. Bye-bye.